Spoštovane in spoštovani, lep dober dan želim. Dobrodošli na drugi v nizu okroglih miz, ki jih Slovenska tiskovna agencija organizira v povezavi s spremembami, ki jih prinaša predlog nove protikadilske zakonodaje. Na prvi okrogli mizi pred kratkim smo predstavili predvsem kajenje med mladimi, kako zgodaj se kajenje med mladimi pojavlja tako v Sloveniji kot v drugih evropskih državah, pa tudi o marketingu tobačne industrije. Preden se posvetimo razpravi, naj na začetku spomnim, da zaradi bolezni, ki jih povzroča kajenje, v Sloveniji vsak dan umre 10 prebivalcev, četrtina od teh že pred 60 letom in skupaj samo pri nas zaradi kajenja vsako leto umre več ljudi, kot zaradi nezgod, samomorov, alkohola, prepovedanih drog in aidsa skupaj. Na tokratni okrogli mizi z naslovom Kako elektronske cigarete vplivajo na javno zdravje, pa se bomo danes posvetili predvsem vprašanjem, katere spremembe prinaša novi zakon za uporabnike in distributerje elektronskih cigaret, ki so mnenja, da jih nov zakon preveč enači z uporabniki in proizvajalci tobačnih izdelkov. Soočili bomo različne poglede glede omenjene problematike. V današnjem pogovoru pa bodo na okrogli mizi sodelovali. Naj najprej predstavim edino predstavnico nežnejšega spola, z nami je Nataša Blaško z Direktorata za javno zdravje na Ministrstvu za zdravje. Lepo pozdravljeni. Potem je z nami grški kardiolog in raziskovalec, gospod Konstantinos Farsalinos. Lepo pozdravljeni in dobrodošli. Z nami je tudi gospod Jacques Levezek, strokovnjak na področjih javnega zdravstva in odvisnosti od tobaka. Hello. Pa Slaven Kalevič, Združenje vejparjev Slovenije. Lep dober dan želim. In Bojan Ivančič, zastopnik gospodarsko-interesnega združenja. Lepo pozdravljeni. Okroglo mizo bomo danes začeli s prezentacijo gospoda Farsalinosa, vodilnega raziskovalca elektronskega kajenja v Evropi. Predstavil nam bo eno redkih raziskav, ki je bila narejena na tem področju. Mr. Farsalinos, please.
I'll try to be as fast as I can. I'm going to start with the basic principle of what harm reduction is and why we need it. These are policies, programs, and practices which are aimed to reduce the harms associated mainly with the use of psychoactive drugs like opioids and so on. These are strategies that complement all the other efforts to prevent or to reduce the use of these drugs. And it is based on the recognition that despite our huge efforts to stop or prevent the initiation of these drugs, there are many people who are using them. So it is the ethical duty of the scientific community to reduce the health risk to these people. And all of us, the harm reduction approach became very well known to all of us after HIV was appeared and was spreading like crazy among the injecting drug users. And you all know now, and all over the world, there are such harm reduction strategies for IV drug users, like the needle exchange programs and the opioid substitution therapy. It is an almost universally accepted approach. You can see here with the dark blue color all the countries that accept harm reduction for IV drug use. And specifically for Slovenia, it is mentioned in the official legislation. There are officially needle exchange programs and opioid substitution therapy. So the issue of harm reduction is about 15.9 million IV drug users. This is the number. But because of the benefits for these people, the value of harm reduction has been recognized widely, not only by the countries and the governments, but also by major health organizations like the WHO and the Red Cross. With tobacco harm reduction, we have the same basic principles, but they are about smoking. The basic principle is to provide nicotine to people who cannot or do not want to quit by themselves or by using the currently approved methods. So we try to give them a cleaner form of nicotine by using a less harmful product. We know that the tobacco, cigarette, and smoking is the most harmful form of nicotine intake, but also a very effective one and a very pleasing one, and that's why people want to smoke. So as I said, the harm reduction for IV drugs is about 16 million users, but tobacco harm reduction is about a whopping 1 billion people because we have 1 billion smokers worldwide. And the WHO predicts 1 billion deaths just because of smoking during the 21st century. That's a huge step forward from about 150 million deaths in the 20th century. And as you understand, when you have a strategy that is addressed to such a large proportion of the population, you are expecting to see huge population benefits if this strategy is endorsed for 1 billion smokers. So smoking in Europe is a major issue. There has been a decline over the last 12 years from about 38% to 28%, but still 28% of the adult population above 15 is quite huge. And in Slovenia, there is a very worrying trend, an increase, according to the Eurobarometer at least, an increase in smoking. And in fact, even before that, the prevalence was about 25%. It went to 28% in 2012, and it was up to 30% in 2014. I'm not sure why this is happening, and I didn't have the time to do any more research, but this is a worrying trend. It's one of the very few countries where you see an increase in smoking prevalence, according to the European Union data. The reason why tobacco harm reduction exists is simple. Smoking cessation medications fail in the majority of cases. And I have here a characteristic study using the most effective smoking cessation medication we currently have, which is varenicline. And we can see that especially when we look at smoking cessation at 9 to 52 weeks, so after the time they have stopped using the drug, because usually you take the drug for 9 to 12 weeks. But you can see here that the success rate was only 19%. So less than 2 out of 10 people who tried it were able to quit. And for nicotine replacement therapies that you all know, like gums or patches, the success rate is much lower than 10%. It's about 7%. And this is why such a strategy needs to exist. Now, I think it's extremely important to make the distinction, and it's not very clear in the population, it's not even clear among healthcare professionals, between nicotine and smoke effects. Because we know for more than 4 decades that people smoke for nicotine but die from tar. This is something that was written in BMJ by Professor Mike Russell from the UK, who said that people want to smoke because they like the nicotine intake, but they are not getting disease or death by nicotine, but from the tar, which means from the combustion products. Obviously, I have never met a healthcare professional who supports that use of nicotine is desirable in any form, but the duty of the clinicians and of the people who are treating smokers is to prevent disease and death and not to judge the behavioral and the choice of someone to use nicotine. So it is very important and very educating to understand the impact of nicotine on smoking-related disease and death. And as you know, nicotine is a natural substance. It is available in the tobacco plant, but not only in tobacco plant. It is available in cauliflower, in potatoes, in tomatoes, in eggplants. Eggplants, in fact, are the second plant with the second highest level of nicotine in it. But of course, much lower levels compared to tobacco, and that's why we use tobacco to take nicotine. We have a lot of long-term epidemiological evidence about nicotine use and cancer or heart disease coming from the study of snus. Snus is a form of tobacco product which with no combustion, so it's a small pouch with nicotine that you put under your lip, and this is how you take nicotine. Characteristically, snus users are obtaining similar or most likely higher amounts of nicotine daily compared to smokers. So, if nicotine had a significant impact on smoking-related disease, we would have seen a similar incidence of cancers or heart disease among snus users. But the case is completely different. Very large studies with thousands of participants, mainly in Sweden, because snus is used mainly in Sweden, is showing that cancer risk among snus users is mainly similar compared to never smokers and never users of any other tobacco product. This is a large study performed in Sweden. Another study, which was basically a meta-analysis, a review of all the studies performed on snus, which showed that the overall cancer risk in snus users is similar to never smokers again. And these authors went a bit further and said that if all current or former smokers in the US were instead snus users, the number of smoking-related cancer deaths would have been reduced by 99%. So instead of 130,000 deaths per year due to smoking by cancer, they would have something like 1,100 deaths. It's a huge benefit for the population level. And about heart disease, you know, many people and even doctors believe that nicotine causes heart disease just because when you acutely take nicotine, when you smoke a cigarette, you see an acute elevation in blood pressure and heart rate that lasts for about 10-15 minutes. But we have, again, a lot of evidence from snus evaluating, for example, here the risk of myocardial infarction, and another very large one. We're talking about tens of thousands of people followed up. And the result was that snus use, even heavy or long-term use, was not a risk factor for heart disease, and the risk was similar to never smokers. In fact, the authors themselves mentioned that toxic components other than nicotine appear implicated in the pathophysiology of smoking-related ischemic heart disease. So it is absolutely clear, and these are very long-term studies with thousands of participants showing that nicotine is not the main reason for either heart or cancer disease related to smoking. And we have a very important example of the effects of a tobacco harm reduction strategy in Sweden. So according to the WHO data, Sweden has a very high overall nicotine use, especially in men. But most of the population, of the male population, because women don't use snus very much, most of them are using snus and very few are using cigarettes. They have a smoking prevalence of 11% compared to 28% in the average EU. But overall, they have a tobacco use of around 30% because much of it is snus. So many people obtain nicotine. However, Sweden has by far the lowest rate of deaths from cancer and heart disease compared to any other country in the EU and probably in the world. So the use of snus, this tobacco harm reduction strategy in Sweden, has resulted in a huge public health and population benefit in Sweden. So it's a major example. And just because of these studies, nicotine use, the long-term use of nicotine, has been endorsed by scientific associations like the US FDA and the UK MHRA, which is the UK form of the FDA, since 2013 for the FDA. And since 2010 in the UK, they support the long-term use of nicotine in the form of NRT by saying that there are no circumstances in which it is safer to smoke than to use nicotine in the form of a nicotine replacement therapy. And NRTs can be used without any limit to the duration of use in order for someone to substitute smoking. So the e-cigarettes, we have a lot of evidence. I'm going to show you just only a few things. And this is a study which evaluated the carcinogen exposure of e-cigarette users compared to cigarette smokers. And as you can see with the blue color, the e-cigarette users had much lower carcinogen exposure compared to tobacco cigarette users. The levels were not zero, but these levels are not even zero in never smokers because these carcinogens are also present in environmental pollution. They are also present in food products. That is why even never users have some levels of exposure to these chemicals. And in fact, the authors mentioned that the levels found in e-cigarette users were similar to never smokers. And you can see that the improvement can happen really fast. This is a study which measured at baseline the levels of carcinogen exposure in smokers, and after that, they gave them e-cigarettes. So some of them became e-cigarette users only, and the others reduced their smoking consumption but did not quit, so they were dual users. And you can see that just after 4 weeks, In both cases, there was a significant reduction in the level of carcinogen exposure, mainly especially for exclusive e-cig users at levels which are similar to people who have never smoked or have never used any tobacco product. The effects, that's a very important clinical study about asthma, because many people believe that e-cigarette will cause worsening of the asthma condition. These are people who were evaluated with spirometry, so it is an objective measurement of respiratory function at 2 time periods before switching from smoking to e-cigarette use. After the baseline, they switched. Some of them again quit, some of them became dual users but reduced their smoking consumption. And especially at the second follow-up visit, which was at 1 year follow-up, they had a significant improvement in respiratory function as measured objectively by spirometry. And the further follow-up at 24 months showed that this improvement is maintained. So there is, even 2 years after switching, there is an evidence of harm reversal in terms of improvement in the respiratory condition of these patients. We recently published, it was in January 2016, a study showing that people who smoke and have high blood pressure at baseline, when they switch to e-cigarettes, especially for people who quit smoking, but also for reducers, smoking cessation with e-cigarette led to a significant improvement in blood pressure after 1 year. So that is, again, a follow-up for 1 year. So we already are starting seeing evidence that even this short-term but quite long follow-up, we didn't have anything like this in the past, there is an improvement in several disease conditions. And it's easy to understand why. We have measured what's present in the e-cigarette liquid and the e-cigarette aerosol. And you can see here, for example, nitrosamines, which are major carcinogens. The levels in e-cigarette are almost similar to the levels present in nicotine gum. But look what's happening with cigarettes. We're talking about levels of exposure almost 2,000 times higher than e-cigarette use. Mainly, you have to use the e-cigarette for 1 to 2 years in order to get the same levels of nitrosamines that you get from one cigarette. That's a huge, huge difference. Other carcinogens, we have measured several carcinogens that are present in tobacco cigarette smoke, and we compared them with e-cigarettes. And you can see that there are huge differences in carcinogens like nitrates and phenols, in heavy metals too. And you can see that, and it's something that many people don't know, that we have heavy metals also present in medicinal inhalers. That is why the United States Pharmacopoeia has set the upper acceptable levels of intake of heavy metals by medicinal inhalers, so through inhalation. And you can see here a meta-analysis that we did of testing in 13 e-cigarette products, and the level of cadmium, chromium, but also copper, lead, and nickel were by far lower from e-cigarette exposure compared to medicinal inhalers, compared to the acceptable limit from a medical inhalational product. Aldehydes, I'm sure many of you have heard the stories about aldehydes. The levels are much lower in e-cigarettes than in tobacco cigarettes, but not only that, they are even lower than the levels accepted by the WHO as an indoor air, a good quality indoor air. So you should know that here we are exposed continuously in every breath we take to formaldehyde, because formaldehyde is the most commonly used chemical for the treatment of wood, of carpets, of paints, of everything. So everything in our home emits formaldehyde to the air. So the WHO has set an upper safety limit, which is defined as clean indoor room. So you can see here that just staying at your home in a clean indoor, with clean indoor air, and just breathing, doing nothing, is going to expose you to 3 times higher levels of formaldehyde compared to what you would get from 600 puffs of e-cigarette use per day. There are many questions about the use of e-cigarettes in the population. One of them is the use by never smokers. So this is the data from the Eurobarometer 2014 study. It's going to be, it was accepted a few days ago by Addiction, and it's going to be published. And you can see that current e-cigarette use is exclusively present in current smokers and former smokers, but it is basically zero among never smokers. There is some experimentation, but this discusses about current e-cigarette use, and you know that if there is any risk to be exposed to, it's not going to come from just trying it once or twice. It's going to come through daily and current use. So, use by never smokers, nothing. But most importantly, what is the impact of e-cigarette use on the smoking status? It was a direct question asked in the Eurobarometer. And you can see that people responding that with the e-cigarette, 35.1% managed to quit smoking, and an extra 32.2% reduced the cigarette consumption. That's a total benefit for 67.3% of current cigarette users. And I can tell you that there is no other product historically with such a success in such a large population study. This is a survey performed by the EU in 27,800 people in all 28 member states in the EU. And we are talking about 6.1 million smokers in the EU who have managed to quit smoking with the use of the e-cigarette. Another concern is if people who have never smoked or have never used any tobacco product are starting to take nicotine with e-cigarette. So the Eurobarometer survey asked this question, and it's really impressive that there is, again, almost zero initiation with e-cigarette. Just 0.8% compared to, of course, tobacco cigarette, which is the initial product used by 95% of the population who is using some form of tobacco. The European regulation, although there are some positive things, unfortunately, much of the regulation is meaningless in terms of public health or in terms of safety and restrictive. For example, the maximum content of the atomizers, it makes no sense at all. It even makes use more difficult, and it also exposes the user to a more frequent refilling of the atomizer, which means more chance of getting in contact with the liquid. It makes absolutely no sense. They should have decided on the exact opposite. Increase the volume of the atomizer. The maximum content of nicotine-containing liquids, 10 milliliters. There is no other product, and I can tell you many examples of toxic products, chlorine that we use to clean our floors, washing powder that we use in laundry. There has never been implemented any kind of a limit to the volume of the bottles or of the package like we see with the e-cigarette. And it makes no sense because if you get in contact with the skin, with nicotine, you will not be intoxicated because it needs several hours for nicotine to be absorbed through the skin. So the only way of being intoxicated is if you do it deliberately, if you try, for example, to commit suicide, but most likely you will either drink it or you will inject it intravenously. The leak-proof and non-fragile atomizers, although the leak-proof is a positive thing, unfortunately, it has resulted in the ban of the use of glass atomizers and bottles, which is currently the safest material you can use with these products. So the regulation is forcing a ban on the safest material that can come into contact with the liquid. The ban on advertising and the ability to promote only local events results, of course, in very limited information for smokers. I don't support the unregulated marketing and advertising. There must be specific rules set, but not a complete ban. The separate registration of the products to every country is, I think, of questionable legality. I think it's illegal in the EU, but at the end, it makes the product, again, more expensive. And the payment for file submission fee to every country also makes the product more expensive. So in reality, the regulation is creating a lot of barriers in e-cigarette use, which is, in reality, whether we like it or not, indirectly protecting tobacco cigarettes. That's the truth. Because the e-cigarette is currently the biggest competitor of tobacco cigarettes. So when you
we'll
yes.
make it shorter.
Yes,
20 minutes.
I'm concluding.
Okay.
In conclusion, the current estimates, both by Public Health England and by the Royal College of Physicians, have said that the e-cigarettes are at least 95% less harmful, or even more. This is based on the fact that we know what's present in the e-cigarette liquid and aerosol. and that there is no combustion and there is minimal impact of nicotine on smoking-related disease. There is absolutely no harm from second-hand exposure. We have 3 or 4 studies showing that. So any decisions to ban the use of e-cigarettes in public places is scientifically unjustified. End of statement. There is a strong opposition to tobacco harm reduction because there is opposition to nicotine addiction, which I understand, but it's not really facing the problem. There are concerns about the use of e-cigarettes by non-smoking adults and youth, which is a legitimate concern, and we have to monitor the situation, but it is currently unsupported by the evidence, so it's basically an abuse of the precautionary principle. And the question is that whether we have the duty to help smokers unable to quit with any other alternative products, or whether we should punish smokers just because they cannot quit with what we want them to quit with. The current population effects are showing that the use is mainly among smokers and former smokers. There is no harm expected by never smokers because they don't use them, they just try them. There is no getaway effect to smoking. No one starts with an e-cigarette, it's almost zero. So current evidence shows within the EU that there are only population benefits and no harms. I think that we should learn from history, and we are seeing a repetition of the history with what happened 20 or 30 years ago with IV drug use. The same exact arguments used against the programs of needle exchange and opioid substitution therapy are now used about e-cigarettes. The thing is that it took years for harm reduction to be accepted by the authorities for IV drug use, but restricting tobacco harm reduction is costing millions of lives because we have 1 billion smokers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hvala lepa. Kar nekaj podatkov je bilo nanizanih v tejle prezentaciji, nekaj zelo zanimivih podatkov, in ker je bila zakonodaja tista zadnja, o kateri je gospod Farsalinos govoril, se bomo posvetili prav tej zakonodaji v nadaljevanju današnje okrogle mize. Gospa Blaško, najprej vas bom kar prosila za nekaj povzetkov iz predlogov nove protikadilske zakonodaje, ki nas čakajo. Predvsem mogoče, če se lahko posvetiva elektronskemu kajenju, kako bo urejeno to področje.
Lepo pozdravljeni še v mojem imenu. Najprej bi želela povedati, kaj moramo uvesti na področju obravnave elektronskih cigaret na podlagi direktive. In to pomeni, da moramo skladno z direktivo o proizvodnji, predstavitvi in pa prodaji tobačnih in pa povezanih izdelkov, kamor sodijo poleg elektronskih cigaret še zeliščne cigarete in pa novi tobačni izdelki. Pomeni, da se morajo vsi proizvajalci in pa uvozniki elektronskih cigaret bodo morali skladno z direktivo. Tisti, ki še niso na trgu pred sprejetjem zakona, bodo morali 6 mesecev pred začetkom prodaje teh nove znamke, pač nove elektronske cigarete, bodo morali obvestiti oziroma uradno obvestiti pristojni organ, to je Nacionalni laboratorij za zdravje, okolje in hrano, o tem, da prihaja nova elektronska cigareta na trg. Tisti, ki pa so takrat, ko bo sprejet zakon že na trgu, pa bodo morali to uradno obvestilo urediti v 6 mesecih po sprejetju tega zakona. Uradno obvestilo bo med drugim vsebovalo ime proizvajalca, seznam vseh sestavin v izdelku, emisije, toksikološke podatke glede sestavin in emisij, podatke o osebnosti in vnosu nikotina in pa opis komponent izdelka, kar obširno poročilo o izdelku bo moralo biti pripravljeno. Potem pa direktiva določa tudi nekaj drugih pogojev, ki so bili danes že omenjeni strani gospoda Farsalinosa. Med drugim glede velikosti posodic, to je tistih prostornina posodic za ponovno polnjenje je lahko največ 10 ml, pri polnilih za enkratno uporabo pa največ 2 ml. Pomembno pa je, da tekočina, ki vsebuje nikotin, lahko vsebuje največ 20 mg na mililiter nikotina in pa ne sme vsebovati nikakršnih dodatkov, naprimer kakršnih koli vitaminov, kofeina, taurina, dodatkov, ki bi obarvali emisij ali pa katerihkoli drugih podatkov, ki bi lahko vzbujali občutek, da je ta izdelek manj škodljiv. Tekočina z nikotinom mora vsebovati le zelo čiste sestavine in z izjemo nikotina se v njej uporabljajo le sestavine, ki v segreti ali nesegreti obliki ne predstavljajo tveganja za zdravje. Zagotavljati se mora tudi to, da se nikotin ob običajni uporabi dovaja enakomerno in pa da elektronskih cigaret in posodic za ponovno polnjenje ne morejo uporabljati otroci, torej so zaščitene pred lomljenjem, puščanjem ter imajo mehanizem, ki zagotavlja ponovno polnjenje brez puščanja. Pomembno je tudi, da morajo zavojčki elektronskih cigaret in posodice za ponovno polnjenje vključevati natisnjene informacije z navodili za uporabo in shranjevanje, navedbo, da se uporaba mladim in nekadilcem svetuje, informacije o kontraindikacijah, opozorila za posebne rizične skupine in informacije o neželenih učinkih, zasvojljivosti in toksičnosti, ter tudi še zraven kontaktne podatke proizvajalca ali pa uvoznika. Pomembno je tudi, da mora biti na zavojčku in zunanji embalaži natisnjeno zdravstveno opozorilo, in sicer izdelek vsebuje nikotin, ki povzroča hudo zasvojenost, nekadilcem se uporaba odsvetuje. Potem je pa še skladno z direktivo se uvaja še obveznost poročanja proizvajalcev in pa uvoznikov teh elektronskih cigaret o obsegu prodaje, o preferencah različnih skupin potrošnikov, o načinu prodaje teh izdelkov. Potem mora biti predložiti se tudi povzetki raziskav trga, ki so bile izvedene v zvezi s tem. In v primeru, da elektronska cigareta recimo kljub izpolnjevanju teh zakonskih pogojev da se ugotovi, da predstavlja resno tveganje za zdravje ljudi, se lahko umakne iz trga. Poleg tega, kot je bilo danes že rečeno, direktiva prepoveduje, podobno kot za tobačne izdelke, tudi oglaševanje, promocijo in pa sponzoriranje elektronskih cigaret. To je bilo zdaj, sem poskušala čim bolj na kratko, kaj določa direktiva. Zdaj bi pa želela še ostale določbe, ki smo jih pa uvedli na podlagi priporočil oziroma okvirne konvencije Svetovne zdravstvene organizacije, ki smo jo ratificirali že leta 2005 in ki vse pogodbenice poziva tudi nas, da naj sprejmejo take ukrepe, ki bodo preprečevali začetek uporabe elektronskih cigaret nekadilcem, otrokom in drugim ranljivim skupinam, take ukrepe, ki bodo zaščitili ljudi pred izpostavljenostjo emisij oziroma aerosola teh elektronskih cigaret, in pa ukrepe, ki bodo preprečevali nedokazane pozitivne zdravstvene trditve glede elektronskih cigaret. Svetovna zdravstvena organizacija nas tudi poziva k prepovedi oglaševanja, sponzoriranja in promocije, tako podobno kot je tako urejeno za tobačne izdelke. Svetovna zdravstvena organizacija torej poziva pogodbenice, da ali prepovedo ali pa ustrezno regulirajo elektronske cigarete, na primer kot je to pri nas predlagano, kot tobačne izdelke, in to je pa treba narediti ob upoštevanju največje možne zaščite zdravja prebivalcev. Tako da jaz bi tukaj rekla, da to, kar mi uvajamo, ni najstrožja možna rešitev. Ob upoštevanju zakonskih pogojev so elektronske cigarete še vedno na voljo vsem, razen mladoletnim, katerim bodo prepovedane, tako kot tobačni izdelki, drugače pa so še vedno na voljo. In v primeru, kot je bilo danes že rečeno, da bi se jih želelo tržiti oziroma prodajati kot pomoč pri opuščanju kajenja, pa je potrebno narediti obširne teste in pa jih Svetovna zdravstvena organizacija opozarja, da na podlagi sedaj obstoječih rezultatov in raziskav ni mogoče zaključiti, da bi bile elektronske cigarete učinkovita pomoč pri opuščanju kajenja. Da bi jih kot take lahko priporočili, jih je potrebno registrirati oziroma izvesti obširne teste in učinkovitosti in varnosti uporabe, tako kot za ostalo drugo nikotinsko nadomestno terapijo. Kot je meni znano, da bi se elektronska cigareta do zdaj, katera uspela registrirati kot zdravilo ali pa medicinski pripomoček, takega primera še ni bilo. No. Tako da to bi bilo na kratko.
Hvala lepa. Da se bomo lažje pogovarjali, bom prosila gospoda Bojana Ivančiča, da nam pove, kako pa na GIZ-u vidijo novo protikadilsko zakonodajo, da predstavimo še drugo plat, da se bomo potem lažje pogovarjali. Seveda pa je vsem nam danes tukaj zdravje na prvem mestu, želja potem, da bi čim več kadilcev prenehalo kaditi in pa želja potem, da bi imeli eno močno in doživeli eno močno raziskavo vsaj na področju Evropske unije glede elektronskega kajenja. Gospod Ivančič, torej še vaš pogled, kako vi vidite, kakšne pripombe imate vi na trenutni predlog protikadilske zakonodaje, kje vidite možnosti izboljšav?
Pozdravljeni, zahvaljujem se za izčrpno prezentacijo. Še malo razmislimo o samih teh podatkih, ki smo jih danes slišali glede elektronskih cigaret v primerjavi s tobačnimi cigaretami. Nam nekako mislim, da postane jasno, da zakonodaja nekaj ni v redu. Dejansko elektronsko cigareto uporabljam od samega začetka 8 let in po 14 dneh sem že opazil, kakšna razlika je. Prej pa sem pokadil 3 do 4 škatle cigaret na dan. Glede na to, da smo imeli tako pozitivne rezultate, tudi pri nekaterih mojih prijateljih, smo takrat začeli tudi s trženjem teh elektronskih cigaret. Vsi smo bili prepričani, da delamo dobro delo. No, že čez nekaj mesecev so nas obiskali tudi inšpektorji, Ministrstvo za zdravje, naredili so analize naših polnil, elektronskih cigaret, pregledali vse certifikate in takrat smo dobili v bistvu pozitivno rešeno zadevo, brez problemov. Potem se je začel pritisk stopnjevati, začeli so se pregledi inšpektorski, tudi glede elektronike, potem so prepovedali oglaševanje, s tem, da so tujci lahko normalno pri nas oglaševali in prodajali brez problemov. Potem so polnila oziroma tekočine začeli nadzirati s pomočjo kemičnega zakona, tako da v bistvu elektronska cigareta kot taka in pa te tekočine, ki se uporabljajo oziroma polnila, so po mojem pod največjim drobnogledom, pod večjim drobnogledom kot vse ostale zadeve. Če mi pogledamo elektronska cigareta, razen nesrečnega imena cigareta z navadno cigareto nima nič skupnega. V bistvu je to skupek baterije in uparjalnika oziroma napajalnika in uparjalnika. Na trgu poznamo uparjalnike, vlažilnike, inhalatorje, ki se prodajajo pri nas recimo na Bolhi, na internetu, kjerkoli brez problema. Na vsaki tej napravi lahko dodaš malo nikotina in imaš elektronsko cigareto. Torej, tukaj nastane veliko problemov. V Sloveniji zaradi vseh teh omejitev in pa zaradi izredno negativnega poročanja medijev v bistvu elektronska cigareta na izredno slabem glasu, kar mislim, da je povsem neupravičeno, predvsem pa tudi neetično, do vseh tistih kadilcev, ki bi se olajšali svoje življenje oziroma verjetno bi preprečili že tudi kakšno smrt več. Tako je v bistvu v Sloveniji danes samo kakšnih 15 majhnih podjetij, ki tržijo te elektronske cigarete. To so nekje 1 do 3, 4 zaposleni. In v bistvu praktično te elektronske cigarete so zelo težko dostopne kadilcem. Iz naše prakse smo ugotovili, ker imamo pač tudi lastno trgovino, da najmanj 99 ali praktično 100% vseh, ki se obrnejo na nas za elektronsko cigareto, so bivši kadilci. Lahko vam bi pripovedoval čudovite zgodbe v naših uporabnikov, kako so bili veseli, ko so našli neko nadomestilo, bolj zdravo nadomestilo za vse te probleme, ki so jim jih povzročale navadne cigarete. Od kašljanja, smradu.
Glede na to, da je bila predstavitev
Ja.
na začetku zelo
Okej.
dolga,
Dobro,
vas bom
mogoče
samo
sem malo
prosila, če se
zašel,
posvetiva
se
vprašanju
opravičujem.
in sicer proti kadilski
Ja.
zakonodaji. Kje so tiste stvari,
Da.
ki bi po vašem mnenju
no,
lahko bile izboljšane?
Tako je. V bistvu smo imeli tudi že en sestanek z Ministrstvom za zdravje. Tukaj moram reči, da smo dobili posluh z njihove strani in predvidevam, da bomo v bistvu začeli skupaj predelovati in nekako izboljšati pač vse te napake, ki se pojavljajo tako znotraj tega novega zakona, v katerem so v bistvu, če bi zakon tak, kot je napisan, sprejeli, bi kršili mnogo drugih zakonov, človekove pravice, ustavo, predvsem bi pa že obstoječe kadilce, uporabnike elektronskih cigaret večinoma vrnili nazaj na tobačne. To je največji problem. Za naša podjetja, kjer smo tako majhni, pa je zelo velik problem tudi trošarine. Tudi to je zelo, po mojem, zelo neetičen poizkus. V zakonu celo piše, da se ta trošarine sprejemajo zato, da kadilci ne bi prišli na elektronsko cigareto. Mislim, da je to skregano z vsako pametjo.
A ste lahko mogoče
Ja.
malce bolj konkretni, katere stvari bi po vašem mnenju lahko izboljšali, da potem gospa Blaško lahko odgovori?
V bistvu je kar precej teh pripomb. Mi smo to v pisni obliki dali že pred 2 mesecoma in bi v bistvu rabo kar po točkah, da gremo. Praktično je skoraj pri vsaki točki so določene pomisleki in pa v bistvu pravzaprav nemogoči pogoji. Zakon kot tak praktično uničuje trg elektronskih cigaret, prav tako tudi trošarinski zakon. Moram pa povedati, da v bistvu ni res, da tukaj ni regulacije, da obstaja regulacija, tako vse elektronske naprave oziroma elektronske cigarete morajo imeti certifikate, ROH, CE, potem vse kemikalije oziroma tekočine, ki jih prodajamo, morajo imeti certifikate. Oglaševanje je tako ali tako prepovedano, brez da bi bilo uzakonjeno. Prav tako je že predpisano, da morajo biti na stekleničkah v bistvu vsa ta opozorila, da vsebujejo nikotin, celo za odtis za slepe in tako naprej. Dejansko po našem mišljenju se elektronska cigareta sploh ne bi smela obravnavati v tobačnem zakonu. Vendar, če je že pač tako mora biti, smo pripravljeni, da iščemo kakšno skupno pot, vendar mora biti kar velike spremembe.
No, če sem vas prav razumela, ste zadovoljni tudi s pogovori na Ministrstvu za zdravje. Na kratko bom prosila gospo Blaško za odgovore, da se potem posvetimo še drugim sogovornikom za okroglo mizo. Torej, nekaj navedb je bilo izrečenih, če lahko pokomentirate.
Tako Ministrstvo za zdravje ne bo odstopala od predloga prepovedi prodaje teh izdelkov mladoletnim, prav tako ne prepovedi uporabe teh izdelkov v zaprtih javnih in delovnih prostorih. Lahko pa razmišljamo o možnih uvedbah teh specializiranih trgovin za elektronske cigarete. Kot mi je bilo rečeno, jaz žal nisem mogla biti prisotna na tem sestanku, mi je bilo rečeno, da je bil to eden izmed predlogov, da bi se te elektronske cigarete lahko prodale samo zato v specializiranih trgovinah. Temu delu smo pa deloma naklonjeni, vendar moramo še naprej se pogovarjati, drugače pa vse ostale določbe ostajajo enake. Tukaj bi jaz povedala, da nismo mi nikakor ne edina država, ki bo, naprimer, rada bi naštela države, ki so ali pa bodo prepovedale elektronske cigarete v zaprtih prostorih, tako kot mi. To je naprimer Avstrija, že letos maja 2016 je bila sprejeta prepoved enake obravnave elektronskih cigaret, tako da tam, kjer je prepovedano kajenje navadnih cigaret, je prepovedana tudi uporaba elektronskih cigaret. Za letom 2018 pa bo v Avstriji sprejeta popolna prepoved uporabe zaprtih prostorov tako kajenja kot pa elektronskih cigaret. To povem za tiste, ki še ne vejo, da gre tudi Avstrija po poti te prepovedi. Poleg tega je to enako glede uporabe v zaprtih prostorih, enako obravnava tobačne in elektronske cigarete tudi Portugalska, Belgija, Malta, Madžarska, Italija sicer ne bo prepovedala povsod, ampak v šolah in tudi izven šol na odprtem prostoru, potem Litva, Norveška, Finska, tudi Hrvaška jih bo enako obravnavala, tako da tukaj nikakor nismo edini. Pomembno je povedati, da je izenačitev elektronskih cigaret s tobačnimi izdelki je ravno zaradi neraziskanosti učinkov te dolgotrajne uporabe in pa izpostavljenosti aerosol elektronskih cigaret in posledic te dolgotrajne uporabe je nujna. S prepovedjo oglaševanja elektronskih cigaret, prepovedjo njihove prodaje mladoletnim, prepovedjo uporabe teh izdelkov v zaprtih prostorih in pač delovnih, želimo preprečiti uporabo teh izdelkov oziroma začetek uporabe teh izdelkov predvsem med otroki in mladostniki. Tisti, ki želijo, ti kadilci bodo omejeni samo v zaprtih javnih in delovnih prostorih, drugače lahko še vedno pridejo do elektronske cigarete, kar pa bi bilo v primeru, da bi bila sprejeta zakonodaja, ki je bila sprva na ravni EU tudi izpogajana, pa potem neizpogajana, da bi se morale elektronske cigarete oziroma nikotinski izdelki obravnavati kot zdravila oziroma medicinski pripomočki, drugače sploh ne bi smeli biti na trgu, je to blažja rešitev, tako da mi pravimo, da tisti kadilci, ki želijo opustiti kajenje, še vedno lahko kupijo elektronsko cigareto. Drugače pa to ni, kot sem že povedala, to ni priporočljivi način za opuščanje kajenja in bi rada izpostavila na tem mestu, da v Sloveniji imamo na voljo celo paleto različnih brezplačnih možnosti opuščanja kajenja, ki so dokazano učinkovite in preverjene. To je, kot prvo bi rada omenila, brezplačno telefonsko številko, ki je objavljena na vsaki škatlici cigaret in svetovanje se izvaja v okviru Nacionalnega inštituta za javno zdravje. Vsak delovnik med 5. in 20. uro, izvajajo ga usposobljeni svetovalci in strokovnjaki in na tem svetovalnem telefonu uporabniki lahko dobijo informacije o škodljivosti kajenja, o prednostih nekajenja, o metodah opuščanja kajenja in vse informacije, kam se obrniti po pomoč. Poleg tega programi opuščanja kajenja potekajo tudi v zdravstveno-vzgojnih centrih, ki so v vseh zdravstvenih domovih po vsej Sloveniji. Kadilci, ki želijo opustiti kajenje, dostikrat sami tega ne zmorejo, podatke pa imamo, da več kot polovica ali pa polovica najmanj, več kot polovica kadilcev želi opustiti kajenje, pa sami tega ne zmorejo, zato jih vabimo v te zdravstveno-vzgojne centre, kjer lahko sodelujo tako v individualnih delavnicah kot v skupinskih. Poleg tega se pa odkrivanje in motiviranje pacientov za opustitev kajenja dogaja tudi v okviru referenčnih ambulant družinske medicine in pa pri opuščanju kajenja sodelujejo v veliki meri tudi nevladne organizacije po vsej Sloveniji. Tako da možnosti je veliko na voljo.
Hvala lepa. Želela bi izkoristiti še prisotnost strokovnjaka na področjih javnega zdravstva in odvisnosti od tobaka, gospoda Žaka Levezeka. Menite, da je elektronsko kajenje pot k opustitvi kajenja in kaj je največja težava pri sprejemanju elektronske cigarete kot alternative tobačni cigareti?
Good morning, everybody. Just a few words to introduce who I am. I'm originally a scientist. I was trained in neuroscience, and I then did some clinical pharmacology postdoc. So I'm in the field for more than 30 years, starting by studying nicotine animals and then the behavior in humans. And I'm a smoking cessation specialist also, because since 1986 I am teaching in different universities in France for future smoking cessation specialists about the pharmacology of nicotine, the tobacco dependence. And since about 3 to 4 years now, I've also introduced e-cigarette in my courses to inform and educate health professionals, future smoking cessation specialists. They have to know what it is, because if we are where we are, this is just the main problem. This European regulation is based on people who know nothing about the product and its use. This European directive was based on fears and position, mostly of the tobacco control community, without asking the real experts to explain what vaporization is, what personal vaporizer. I hate e-cigarettes. I hate electronic cigarette name. It means nothing. This is not a tobacco product. This is a substitution to smoking. The regulation is based on no knowledge and based on no consultation of the users. As Konstantinos Farsalinos presented at the beginning, we are in tobacco harm reduction. In the field of harm reduction, the users are the key actors. They need to be heard. They need to be asked. Remember the leitmotif of the 80s during the HIV progression? Nothing about us without us. And this regulation has been put in place without consulting the users, who are the first experts of the product. They improved the product in just a couple of years. So unfortunately, this European directive was voted 2 years ago. And now each country has to implement it. But meanwhile, we have acquired quite a lot of studies, particularly those made by Konstantinos Farsalinos, Ricardo Pelosa, and different others, and I'm also collaborating with them. There are really big problems, and for me, as a smoking cessation specialist, as I said from the beginning, personal vaporizers are a revolution in smoking cessation. We've never seen as many people quit smoking in such a short period of time. And the most important thing is they quit with pleasure. It's the first time in history that smokers can quit smoking with pleasure, keep the pleasure, and no suffering from quitting smoking. There are plenty of problems with the regulation. You were mentioning the problem with, the ban in workplaces and public places. There is no there is no health qualification or problem to apply to vaporizers the same regulation as you apply to tobacco smoking. There is no second-hand vapor. It doesn't exist. How will you handle this if someone comes on the market with a medicinal vaporizer? Will you ban people to use a medicinal product? In workplaces, let me finish.
Yeah, but you should mention that there is already in the UK an e-cigarette which has been approved as a medication
Yeah,
by
but
the
it's not on the
MHRA.
market yet. And it was made by the tobacco industry. But the main problem is more in workplaces. Public places is maybe less of a problem, but you cannot ban everywhere because it's not tobacco smoke. At workplaces, it is a real problem because people are trying to quit, and you can't do with an e-cigarette or a vaporizer, you can't do what a smoker can do usually, which is have a break of 5 minutes every 2 hours. This is just impossible with a vaporizer because what you take in 5 minutes with a cigarette, you will need half an hour to 45 minutes to get the same amount of nicotine from a vaporizer. So this is just impossible, and you will push vapors back to smoking because they will not be able to handle it for the whole day. So that's just one point. You mentioned the fact that you deliver treatment for smokers and they get help in specific centers, like in many countries. But you forgot one thing, which is that more than 80% of smokers quit without any help. And most smokers don't feel ill. They have no problem with tobacco. They have no tobacco-related disease yet. They don't feel ill. They don't feel to go to a doctor or a pharmacist to get something that will help them quit smoking. They found themselves their own product. It's working much better than anything else, and it costs nothing to the society. They don't ask for money. They quit by their own, with their own product, and with pleasure. So you will still have people coming to your smoking cessation center. Some people will need help, but most smokers, they don't need help as long as you don't, restrict too much what they can get on the market. By the regulation of the EU, you are restricting much too much what will be on the market. NRT is on the market for more than 30 years. This has not resolved the tobacco problem. The prevalence of tobacco has almost not significantly decreased in many countries. In my own country, France, we still have 34% of smokers. This is totally unacceptable. So we need to provide smokers with efficient products, and introducing such a regulation will not help that. I just want to mention that recently I managed to organize in France the first e-cigarette summit, actually the vape summit. It was modeled on the one in England, in London. There have been 3 times already an e-cig summit in England, and England is much more advanced in terms of regulation and in terms of acceptation from the physicians, from the government about vaporizing products. SOVAP is a new association. It was born after the summit we did in Paris, because the aim of this summit was to bring together, to bring at the same table on one day all stakeholders. They were the vapors, obviously, the industry, those who are selling the product. There was all the tobacco control associations, the public health associations, the medical associations, and the scientists. And we all discussed for one day. So everybody can put things on the table. At the end of the day, we had a consensus on most positions concerning the fact that e-cigarettes help smokers quitting, that there is no second-hand vaping, that everybody agree. For example, in France, about 80% of the smoking cessation specialists use e-cigarette, even if it's not on prescription. They recommend it to the patient they see. The only 2 points where there was not a full consensus was on advertising and on restriction in public places. The Director General for Health was present at this summit and informed us, and because we asked him, that he will create a working group at the Ministry of Health with all the parties to work on the improvement of the directive. The implementation is published, but there are still decrets to finalize, and we will help them finalize these parts of the law to avoid the worst scenario. For example, it is possible to ban some sort of advertising or regulate it, but in the directive, a total ban means that the window of a shop get black. It's like a sex shop. Do you want to enter a sex shop to buy an e-cigarette? So we need to at least approve that an e-cigarette shop can have something in their window. Even if they don't advertise for a liquid or for a specific system, they can still show what they sell. The consumer has to know where to go. So that's the kind of thing you can improve. And same thing for workplaces. We are in discussion with the Ministry of Health, and they had the intention to introduce the possibility for vapors to have at least one room where they work, where they can have a break and not going on the sidewalk with smokers and be exposed to secondhand smoke. So there's plenty of room to adapt things from the directive and to improve the life of millions of people.
Thank you very much. In še vprašanje, zadnje na vrsti pa bo vendarle kot prvi med uporabniki povedal, kako vidi novo protikadilsko zakonodajo. Prvi mož Združenja vejperjev Slovenije, Slaven Kalebič. V Sloveniji je okrog 20 000 vejperjev, če sem prav informirana. In vaš glas je tudi izpostavil gospod Levezek, se ne sliši zadosti. Ste tudi vi tega mnenja?
Ja, dober dan. Jaz sem Slaven Kalebič, predstavnik Združenja vejperjev Slovenije. Ja, nas je relativno malo še v Sloveniji. Mislim, da je ta recimo i vejperska scena v Sloveniji še relativno mlada. Ni tako razvita kot recimo v Združenih državah Amerike ali pa v Angliji. Se pravi, skladno s tem se naš glas pač manj sliši, ampak mislim, da smo v zadnjih 2-3 mesecih, odkar poteka razprava o novem protikadilskem zakonu, kljub temu, da nas je malo in da delamo vse na volonterski osnovi, da smo naredili kar veliko, med drugim tudi tale okrogla miza danes je pravzaprav bila organizirana na našo pobudo. Zdaj, jaz, gospoda pač Žak in gospod Farcarinos sta že povedala dovolj o nekih znanstvenih aspektih uporabe elektronske cigarete, sploh v primerjavi s tobačno. Jaz lahko tukaj samo povem nekaj iz stališča uporabnika, ne? Torej, mi smo uporabniki elektronske cigarete, tukaj tudi v občinstvu nas je kar nekaj, večinoma, jaz mislim, da praktično skoraj vsi smo bivši kadilci. Elektronska cigareta je bila za mnoge izmed nas tisto, kar nas je, ne samo, da nam je pomagalo, da smo nehali kaditi, ampak je bila pravzaprav metoda, prek katere smo sploh ugotovili, da lahko nehamo kaditi. Jaz mislim, da marsikdo izmed nas sploh ni razmišljal o tem, da bi nehal kaditi, dokler ni probal elektronsko cigareto. Naprimer, jaz konkretno sem bil tako imenovani dvojni uporabnik nekaj časa. Jaz nisem začel uporabljati elektronske cigarete zato, da bi nehal kaditi, ampak zato, da bi preprosto zmanjšal število pokajenih cigaret in sem s časom z uporabo ugotovil, da lahko tudi neham. In to po res mnogih letih zelo, zelo tako močnega kajenja, bi rekel, ne. Kot uporabnik elektronske cigarete in kot državljan Republike Slovenije sem pravzaprav zgrožen in ogorčen sem nad stališči Ministrstva za zdravje in Nacionalnega inštituta za javno zdravje, ker mislim, da je nesprejemljivo in mislim, da je etično sporno, da se sprejema zakonodaja, ki tako preferira tobačne cigarete v primerjavi z elektronskimi. Jaz razumem, da ministrstvo želi zmanjšati porabo tobačnih cigaret, seveda. Ne razumem pa tega enačenja tobačne cigarete in elektronske cigarete in ne razumem te prepovedi v javnih prostorih, če elektronska cigareta ne bi bila prepovedana, na primer, to ne pomeni, da bi se povsod uporabljala. Se pravi, posamezni lastniki, uporabniki prostorov bi še vedno lahko prepovedali uporabo tam, kjer so nadležni, ne, se pravi, v bolnišnicah se verjetno ne bi uporabljala, na železniški postaji, na sodišču, na policijski postaji, pač v vseh teh nekih punktih, ki so nujni za neko državljansko funkcioniranje, ne. Ne vidim pa razloga, zakaj bi se prepovedovala v nekem kafiču, ki bi bil vapor friendly, na primer, ne. Pač, če bi lastnik ugotovil, da ga moti, da do noče, še vedno bi lahko prepovedal. Se pravi, do neke pretirane izpostavitve, ne vem čemu, človeku, ki ne bi hotel biti izpostavljen nečemu, kar itak ne obstaja, po mojem mnenju, ampak okej, ne bi bilo sploh, mislim, ne bi bilo problematično. Sploh ne vem več.
Mogoče, če se prav pri temlem vašem zadnjem stavku ustaviva,
Ja.
Kako vaporji odreagirate, če bi recimo kdo vas prosil, da za današnjo okroglo mizo ne vapate?
Isto kot včasih, ko sem bil še kadilec, ne. Pač bi spoštoval želje tistega, ki je nadležen, ne. Zdaj, če bi mi nekdo XY prišel in začel, mislim, odvisno od situacije, ne, ampak če bi mi lastnik kafiča rekel, sorry, tukaj ne smeš vapati, ne, pač valjda ne bi vapal. To je zelo preprosto. Mislim, da je to stvar vzgoje, ne stvar zakonodaje.
Gospe Blaško bom spet dala besedo, hvala lepa. Nekaj iztočnic smo slišali, ostajamo še vedno verjetno tudi pri tej tematiki, da gre za implementacijo evropske direktive in da ali je slovenski, prej smo slišali, no, ali je slovenska implementacija bolj stroga od drugih, po drugih državah Evrope?
Ne, prej sem že naštela precej držav, ki bo uvedli tako kot mi, tako da mi glede samega izdelka samo prenašamo direktivo, drugače pa kot veliko ostalih držav izenačujemo te izdelke, ne, tako kot rekel gospod, da bi preferirali tobačne izdelke v primerjavi z elektronskimi cigaretami, nikakor ne, ampak izenačujemo. Povedala sem cilj je ta, da bi mlade generacije se ne zasvajale za nikotinom. Tisti, ki želijo s tem, ki so kadilci in ki želijo prenehati, lahko to sedaj storijo tudi s pomočjo elektronske cigarete, čeprav menim, da to ne moramo reči, da so prenehali, ampak da so prišli samo na nek drug izdelek, ki še vedno pač niso več kadilci običajnih cigaret, ampak še vedno uporabljajo izdelek, tako da ne moramo reči, da so prenehali brez pomoči, niti da so prenehali, ker še vedno uporabljajo izdelek, ki vsebuje nikotin. Nikotin, kot vemo, ima zelo škodljive učinke na zdravje, posebej pa je škodljiv za razvoj možganov otrok, zato so pri še nerojenem otroku ter pri mladostniku, te lahko privede do trajnih škodljivih vplivov na kognitivne, to je miselne sposobnosti. Zaužitje večje količine nikotina naenkrat pa lahko vzrok zastrupitve in vodi tudi v smrt. Poleg tega kar nekaj raziskav kaže, da mladi, ki nikoli v življenju, otroci, ki nikoli v življenju niso kadili, so pa že kdaj uporabili elektronsko cigareto in tega je tudi kar nekaj že, ne začnejo kaditi običajne cigarete, ampak uporabljajo elektronsko cigareto in so potem bolj podvrženi tveganju, da potem preidejo na kajenje običajnih cigaret. Tako da to ni mi še vedno puščamo to cigareto dostopno tistim, ki kadijo, ne želimo pa, da bi se ta izdelek začel promovirati oziroma prodajati otrokom, ker ne želimo novih generacij, ki bi bile zasvojene z nikotinom in s tem se pridružujemo tudi ostalim državam na tem področju.
Hvala lepa. Gospod Farsalinos,
Yes, I have several comments. I'm surprised by what I hear, mainly.
Please make it short.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There are going to be many short comments. First, I want to present the paradox of the current regulation. If I want to buy a tobacco cigarette and I go outside, probably I will not have to walk more than 100 meters and I will find cigarettes, right? Which is the most harmful product to obtain nicotine. But for e-cigarettes, can you tell me how many kilometers I need to walk or drive to find a shop to buy any cigarette? So the less harmful product is much more difficult for a smoker to find. It's going to be more expensive because it is taxed. You will have to use it next to a smoker, so you are exposing yourself to second-hand smoking while you inhale something which is almost as clean as you can get. And these are ethical and legal issues that are going to be addressed in the future when a vapor gets damaged or is forced to go back to smoking because of the restrictions. It makes absolutely no sense to make the less harmful product more difficult for people to find and buy, while the most harmful product is the easiest thing you can buy wherever you want. Supermarkets, newspaper, press stores, gas stations, everywhere.
And even if you're underage.
Yeah, although there are bans, again, you can find it even underage. Nicotine is a poison. There is no substance on earth that is not a poison. I can tell you that the most corrosive, the most dangerous substance on earth is water. If you drink 2 liters of water within 15 minutes, you are going to die from electrolyte disturbances. The most corrosive substance on earth, causing severe corrosion on earth structures, is water. Water can cause electrocution. Water can cause burns when you are exposed to it in vapor form. So this issue with nicotine being a poison is violating a basic principle in toxicology, which says that it is, and it was mentioned, this principle, on the 16th century by Paracelsus, who is the father of modern toxicology. Paracelsus said that Nothing is a poison and everything is poisonous. It is the dose which defines toxicity. Nicotine at the levels used by smokers and vapers is almost harmless. I would leave 1%, let's say, harm compared to not using it. At the levels used by smokers, if I take a bottle and I drink it or I inject it intravenously, I will die, of course. Driving your car is probably more dangerous than using nicotine. But no one has said that driving your car is a dangerous thing or is risky. And you drive your car not only to go to your work, but you drive your car with your family to go for vacations. Why are you exposed to such a risk? It is a risk of being either injured or even dying in a car accident. And it's quite common, to happen. Second-hand vaping. There are studies, so it's not that we don't know. All the studies have shown that there is no harm from second-hand vaping. The only thing that you are exposed to is nicotine. But do you know how much nicotine? Similar to eating 300 grams of eggplants, of aubergines. It's exactly the same thing. But when you eat the aubergines, you will take the nicotine at the time you will eat it. And we are talking about the daily exposure is similar to 300 grams of aubergines. It is below, according to the EU chemistry laws, it is below the level associated with any biological effect of nicotine, which is 25 micrograms. It is below that. So it is absolutely, according to the studies, not according to what I believe or I think, it is absolutely harmless. Thus, there is no scientific substantiation to implement a ban in the use in public places. It was mentioned before that the WHO is in favor, of course, of a ban in public places and in favor of severe restrictions. Well, the WHO is extremely wrong, and it's not the first time. This here, this column about IV drug use, if you read it today, you're going to laugh that the clean needles are undermining the anti-drug policy or are encouraging people to inject and use drugs just because you give the drug users clean needles. This is exactly the position of the WHO 30 years ago. The problem is that even though it took 10, 20 years, the number of people who died just because you didn't provide clean needles were a few thousand. Every 2 years, the number of deaths related to smoking is similar to the total number of IV drug users on Earth. It's every 2.5 years, 16 million people die from smoking. And instead of making a consensus, a scientific consensus, as soon as possible, we are going to see the same situation of a 10 or 20-year delay in endorsing tobacco harm reduction in the form of e-cigarettes, and that would mean 20 years delay means 120 million deaths by smoking. This is what is at stake. And the WHO is not the first time that they are wrong. And they are very stubborn too, because this is a slide from Jerry Stimson. Jerry Stimson is a retired professor in the UK. He was working in addictions and harm reduction for IV drugs for 45 years. And I told him that I'm going to use this slide because it was his slide. And the same exact position of the WHO about IV drug use 30 years ago is now being expressed on e-cigarettes. With the evidence showing that never smokers are using e-cigarettes at 0.2%, which means zero, we are seeing every day that news stories or even statements that people who have never smoked are starting using e-cigarettes. And there is absolutely no evidence on that. It is, of course, a theoretical concern. And we have to monitor the situation, of course. But with zero evidence, we hear every day nothing more than theoretical concerns which are against what the evidence And the Eurobarometer is not performed by me, it is performed by the EU. So it's the data from the EU. I'll give you one last example. I received an email yesterday about a statement made by the National Institute of Health in Malaysia. Malaysia has 5 million smokers, and they have 490 smoking cessation centers in Malaysia. Do you know how many of these 5 million smokers went to a smoking cessation clinic last year? 10,000. Do you know how many quit smoking by visiting the smoking cessation clinic? 2,200. I did a survey in Malaysia, we are now analyzing the results, for 2 months. We included 7,100 participants. Do you mean e-cigarette users, all of them? Do you know how many had quit smoking? 4,900. Within 2 months, from a simple online survey, we found more smokers quitting with the use of e-cigarettes than a whole year in 500 smoking cessation clinics all over the country. And we are hearing every day that e-cigarettes are not proven as smoking cessation tools. If I ask here how many are e-cigarette users and how many of them have quit smoking, you're going to see the impact of e-cigarette use on smoking.
Hvala. Zelo zanimiva debata, ki bi jo lahko seveda podaljšali, ampak smo res že dolgi danes, da bomo lahko izkoristili še možnost za vprašanje iz publike. Mogoče še moje zadnje vprašanje za gospoda Levezeka. Kdaj očitno čakamo, pričakujemo eno konkretno raziskavo na področju celotne, ki bi zajemala celotno Evropsko unijo, vse znanstvenike na vseh področjih, ki zadevajo kajenje, elektronsko kajenje in ostale, tudi uporabnike. Torej, kdaj lahko tako raziskavo, ki jo očitno potrebujemo, pričakujemo?
Well, I think we actually are also preparing a second paper that will focus on that based on the Eurobarometer. So focus on the daily use of e-cigarette, because the problem in many surveys, and particularly with the US surveys, is that people qualify e-cig user someone that has used it at least once in a month. How come you can expect from someone taking one puff of e-cigarette over the last 30 days that he can quit smoking? Are you expecting a drug for disease to be efficient if you only take it once in a month? You have to use it every day to quit smoking. So unfortunately, and even the Eurobarometer, and that's why we, Konstantinos Farsalinos, did a reanalysis of it, and we wrote the paper together. Because you cannot expect people quitting smoking if they don't use e-cigarette every day. So that's a basic principle. Unfortunately, the way the European Commission published the result of the Eurobarometer was biased because of that. Because they consider that someone using it once a month should be included in those who try to quit with it, which is totally nonsense. So we have already some data, and we will focus on those who use it every day, and we will show that the levels of quittings are much, much higher than what we have ever seen before. I mean, it's around 40% of success. And I personally did a study with Riccardo Polosa in Italy. And I plan to do one in France, and there was one in the US made in the vape shops where the people go to stop smoking. Most people who try the e-cigarette have the intention to quit smoking or quit smoking by accident. In the pilot study we did in Italy, we had about 40% of success. In the US paper, it was more than 60% success. And it is quitting verified by expired carbon monoxide, so it's validated. So basically, I mean, there will be more and more data like this, but we have already data, and we just need to use them as they should be used, and not the way the European Commission presented the data.
Na kratko še gospa Blaško, potem se pa posvetimo vprašanjem iz publike, prosim.
Jaz bi najprej želela povedati, zakaj smo mi tudi kot veliko drugih držav prepovedali uporabo elektronskih cigaret tudi v zaprtih javnih prostorih in delovnih prostorih, ker je veliko raziskav kaže, da med glavnimi sestavinami te tekočine in pa aerosola so poleg nikotina, ki sem že povedala, da je kako je zasvodljiv in škodljiv, tudi še različni vlažilci in pa arome, in učinki tega dolgotrajnega vdihavanja teh vlažilcev in arom so še premalo raziskani. Znano pa je, da gliceril in mislim, da je propilenglikol, da te dva vlažilca, ki vsebujejo elektronske cigarete, pri kratkotrajni uporabi lahko dražita oči in dihala, predvsem pri občutljivih posameznikih ali tistih z boleznimi dihal. V tekočini in aerosolu elektronskih cigaret so našli tudi različne rakotvorne, dražilne in pa strupene snovi. Aerosol elektronskih cigaret, tako kot tobačni dim, vsebuje tudi različne delce, majhne delce, ki škodujejo zdravju, in ta aerosol vsebuje podobno število in velikost delcev kot tobačni dim. Tukaj ne gre le za navadno paro, kot mislijo mnogi, ampak so notri številne škodljive in rakotvorne snovi. Zato je tudi tako veliko držav se odločilo, da bo iz tega razloga tudi prepovedalo kajenje v zaprtih javnih in delovnih prostorih. Poleg tega bi pa rada povedala še to, da je naša strokovna institucija, recimo, da o elektronskih cigaretah lahko zaključke delamo le na osnovi dokazov o učinkovitosti in varnosti. Na voljo je sicer kar nekaj, precej raziskav, vendar so številne raziskave financirane ali pa na kakršenkoli drug način podprte s strani proizvajalcev elektronskih cigaret, zato je prisoten konflikt interesov, ki, kot kaže, vpliva na zaključke teh raziskav. Strokovnjaki, recimo Nacionalnega inštituta za javno zdravje, spremljajo raziskave, ki so brez konflikta interesov, in pa prvenstveno različne pregledne raziskave. Tako da to, kar sem že rekla, stališče, ki ga zastopa tako Svetovna zdravstvena organizacija, podpirajo in mi podpirajo poleg Svetovne zdravstvene organizacije še Svetovno zdravniško združenje, Forum mednarodnih združenj pulmologov, Evropska komisija, Mednarodna zveza za boj proti tuberkulozi in pljučnim boleznim, Evropsko združenje kardiologov, Evropsko združenje pulmologov, Evropska zveza za javno zdravje, cela lista je tega in mi nismo tle edini in nikakor ne bomo odstopili od te regulacije.
Hvala lepa. Samo še res, ampak very short one, Mr. Levezek and Mr.
I must strongly disagree because there are several inaccuracies that have been mentioned. First of all, the industry has not funded more than 0.5% of all the studies. We have thousands of studies. I don't think more than 5 or 10 have ever been funded by any form of industry, let's say. And this is, I mean, not only, it's almost zero, so it doesn't exist. All the studies are independent, all of them. Now, let's not forget, I mean, I will forget how science works. When you assess second-hand exposure, you don't measure what's present in the aerosol that is coming out from any cigarette. You ask people to vape in a room or to smoke or whatever, and you measure what is present in the air of the room, not what comes out from the cigarette. This is how science works for second-hand exposure. And all the studies, all, there is no exception, have shown that the only thing that they are finding is nicotine, 10 times lower than cigarettes, and I must tell you, nicotine from smoking exposure was never accused for causing any harm in second-hand smoking. Any harm, never. And the levels are so low, as I said, that the bystander is obtaining levels which cause nothing to the organism, not even one heartbeat increase in the heart rate, not even by one, nothing. So we must be very accurate when we do propylene glycol. It is approved for use in humans for decades. It's not something new. It is used in theatrical fog, and you know in theatrical fog you inhale it, and it's not even pharmaceutical grade. It's commercial grade, but it is allowed to be used. And in the e-cigarettes, propylene glycol is pharmaceutical grade, so it's of the highest purity ever. You know that propylene glycol is injected intravenously in patients because, for example, diazepam, intravenous injection, has 40% propylene glycol. The bottle that is used to inject diazepam has 40% propylene glycol. Propylene glycol is used for decades. We never had an issue until e-cigarettes were invented, suddenly.
We're very long today, so please, just a short one, and then Mrs. Blaschko, and then we're finished.
Actually, Konstantinos respond on this. I was saying, well, are you going to ban all the smoking machine in all the theaters and in the movie and so on? I mean, people have been exposed to that for many decades, and there's nothing, not a single case showing anything about propylene glycol. So this is just.
Thank you. Še čisto na kratko, ja. Gospa, kar izvolite, ja.
Ja, zanima me, glede na to, da je bilo toliko dokazov danes že predstavljenih, zakaj se, oziroma mislim, da je ena sama znamka v UK se je do sedaj uspela registrirati kot pomoč pri opuščanju kajenja. Ko bo to uspelo, če bo, ker je treba narediti zelo rekla, težke teste učinkovitosti in varnosti, bo to tudi se drugače tretiralo. Ne vem pa, očitno se elektronske cigarete še ne uspejo registrirati kot pomoč pri opuščanju kajenja. Ko bo to uspelo, se bo lahko tudi drugače tretirali, trenutno se pa tretirajo kot tobačni izdelki.
Hvala lepa. Čisto na kratko, gospod Ivančič, še.
Sure. The only problem with this is that e-cigarettes is based on small companies. The regulation for medicinal regulation is based on pharma companies with a lot of money. Those small companies will never have enough money to apply for medicinal regulation. And the only one who will do it, like it's been done in UK, it's proposed by the tobacco industry because they have the finance for that. So all the medicinal e-cigarette you will have will all be from the tobacco industry. Are you happy with this?
Hvala lepa. Thank you. Še čisto na kratko, gospod Ivančič, potem se bomo pa posvetili po zaključku okrogle mize še vsem ostalim vprašanjem. Tamle se nam bo hladni bife shladil v tem času.
Dobro.
Gospod Ivančič.
Bom zelo kratek.
Ja.
Glede samega zakona dejansko je strožji od tistega, kar zahteva Evropska unija, pa tudi to, kar za direktiva Evropske unije zahteva. Mislim, da je v popolnem nesorazmerju z dejanskimi strokovnimi raziskavami in dokazi učinkovitosti elektronske cigarete pri odvajanju od kajenja. Recimo, ena od takih točk je popolna prepoved internetne prodaje kar pomeni, da v bistvu bodo zopet kršene in človekove pravice, ljudje zopet ne bodo imeli dostopa do učinkovitega orodja, s katerim bi se odvadili navadne tobačne strupene cigarete. Drugo, kar bi še omenil, gospa je omenila, da obstaja ne vem koliko dobrih metod za odvajanje od tobačnih cigaret. Prej pa smo na prezentaciji videli, kako se je povečalo število uporabnikov tobačnih cigaret v Sloveniji, kar je malo nelogično. Pogosto se navajajo neke raziskave, ki jih pravzaprav niso dostopne širšemu krogu javnosti, saj tako GIS kot ZVS poskušamo spremljati vse novosti, vse raziskave, ki obstajajo, in teh raziskav je že ogromno in praktično vse raziskave so v prid, in to neodvisne strokovne razprave, so v prid elektronske cigareti. Zanima me, kdo bo čez nekaj let, ko bo dejansko se dokazalo, da je elektronska cigareta, ne vem sicer, kakšne zahteve so za to potrebne, v vsakem primeru pretiravanje, ker je vsak mobilni telefon bolj nevaren človeškim možganom, kot pa elektronska cigareta, ali pa kot je gospod že prej rekel, avto, v katerega se sedemo.
O tem bomo zagotovo tudi še po okrogli mizi lahko. Zares bi želeli zaključiti, zelo smo dolgi, smo seveda tudi zanimivi, veliko vprašanj ostaja odprtih. 2 vprašanji še vzamemo iz publike, če so, ne vsi naenkrat. Za mojim hrbtom, iz ozadja.
Dela. Jaz se čutim osebno izzvana, zdajle tudi na tej okrogli mizi, prihajam z Nacionalnega inštituta za javno zdravje. Rekla bi sledeče, danes tukaj poslušamo, kot da vse raziskave kažejo eno in isto. Žal je stroka glede elektronskih cigaret zelo razdeljena. Danes pač tukaj sedijo predstavniki ene skupine, je pa mnogo takih tudi v Angliji, ki pač menijo drugače. Jaz bom rekla sledeče, tako kot spremljam literaturo na tem področju, pač trenutno zaenkrat vemo še dosti premalo o tem izdelku. Na tako razgibanem trgu, kjer obstaja tako veliko blagovnih znamk, ki se tako zelo hitro spreminja, da bi lahko delali trdne zaključke za neko povprečno elektronsko cigareto, ki je pravzaprav ni. Zato seveda iz previdnostnega principa pristopamo na ta način, seveda podpiramo to, kar dela Ministrstvo za zdravje. Bi pa rekla sledeče, jaz razumem kadilce in seveda razumem, da si za uporabo tega izdelka tisti, ki na druge načine ne morejo opustiti kajenje, do neke mere najverjetneje zmanjšajo tveganje za razvoj določenih bolezni. Čeprav moramo odkrito priznati, da dolgoročnega učinka na zdravje pa vendarle še ne poznamo v celoti in da se pojavljajo v elektronskih cigaretah tudi snovi, o katerih danes nismo govorili, kot so recimo določene arome. Gospa pa je omenila z ministrstva vlažilce. Bi pa rekla tole, da moramo se pa soočiti tudi s tem, danes smo govorili predvsem o tem, kakšna je korist elektronske cigarete za tiste, ki kadijo. Malce pa pozabljamo na druge skupine prebivalcev in ne bi se popolnoma strinjala s tem, da vsi podatki tako jasno in 100% potrjujejo, da mladi, ki ne kadijo, ne posegajo po elektronskih cigaretah. Podatki iz različnih držav so zelo različni, tako da lahko zasledimo, da tudi kar nekakšni deleži mladih, ki sicer ne bi kadili oziroma ne kadijo, uporabljajo elektronske cigarete. Tukaj bi povedala primer raziskave, ki jo trenutno izvajamo v Sloveniji, je sicer samo prva raziskava, ki malce tipa v tej smeri, kaj se dogaja pravzaprav z mladimi. Povprašali smo šolske delavce na naših šolah, koliko opažajo uporabe elektronskih cigaret. Prepričana sem, da so podatki podcenjeni, ker marsikdo ne ve, kako izgleda elektronska cigareta oziroma je ne prepozna od šolskih delavcev ali pa tega ne opazi, pa vendarle podatki niso ravno spodbudni. Res, da ne vemo, kako pogosto uporabljajo ti otroci elektronsko cigareto in to bo moral biti naslednji korak pri našem raziskovanju, pa vendarle se uporablja elektronska cigareta kar v določenem deležu, zdaj končnih podatkov vam ne morem povedati, raziskava se je komaj zaključila, bomo podatke še analizirali, ampak v zadnji triadi osnovne šole ta uporaba ni ničelna, v srednjih šolah pa nam kar iz znatnega deleža srednjih šol poročajo o tem, da to opažajo. Tako da, ko govorimo o mladih, pa ne moramo govoriti o tem, da gre tukaj za koristi opuščanja kajenja, pa gre tukaj za nekaj drugega in mladi elektronsko cigareto uporabljajo tudi iz drugih razlogov, kot jo uporabljate vi, ki tukaj sedite. Tako da zato bi, pač to bi rada izpostavila danes, zato tudi zakonodaja.
Hvala lepa.
Okay, I have comments about that. Yeah, you go ahead first.
You have 30 seconds. No, we're 2 hours here,
Yeah.
please.
No, this is typical. Working? Yeah, this is typical from what we hear everywhere. You have fears. They are normal. Everybody should have fears, but they're unsubstantiated. We have data. You're looking for data. We have already data in the UK, in France, and in the US. They all show the same. Yes, there are more adolescents using e-cigarettes. Most of them use it without nicotine. And meanwhile, over the last 4 years, the smoking prevalence decreased in all these countries between the age of 12 and 18. Smoking decreased. And in the US, it's at the lowest level ever.
I must be clear. We must implement a ban on the use of e-cigarettes at the age below the age of 18. Clear. That's a regulation that should happen. But there are benefits of e-cigarette adoption of use in young children. What Zach said, the increase in experimentation that we see in the US was accompanied by the largest decline ever in smoking. And this is happening in all countries. And the benefit is that people and young kids use e-cigarettes instead of using tobacco cigarettes. That's a benefit. It's not ideal. The ideal would be not to use anything. But if they are using it instead of smoking, it is a benefit.
We'll stop with that. Ideal would be if no one would use it. Nothing of that. In s tem bomo danes tudi zaključili. Res, jaz se opravičujem, smo šli čez timing popolnoma, zelo zanimiva debata. Lepa res vsem, ki ste se, me že zapirajo z mikrofonom, evo. Hvala lepa vsem, ki ste se udeležili te okrogle mize, hvala vsem obiskovalcem, vsem, ki ste prišli. Sedaj pa res povabljeni na prigrize, kjer lahko dodatno spregovorite, vprašate, odgovorite na vse, kar je danes odprtega še ostalo. Predvsem pa res zaključujem s tem, da si želim, da bi bilo čim več zdravja in čim manj uporabe kakršnih koli cigaret. Vendarle. Hvala lepa in srečno.